A modern cinematic audiobook inspired by atomic habits. INTRO, the architecture of your life. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. There's a man standing in front of a mirror. He's been standing there every morning for 30 days. Not to admire himself. Not out of vanity. But because he made a promise. A tiny promise. Just show up. Just look yourself in the eye and say, I am becoming someone new. That man was broke. Stuck. Going nowhere. Today, he runs a company. He's healthy. He's present with his kids. He's alive in a way he never thought possible. What changed? Not his circumstances. Not his luck. Not some magical moment of inspiration. What changed was something so small, most people would laugh at it. He changed one behavior. Then another. Then another. And slowly, invisibly, those behaviors rebuilt his identity. This audiobook is about that invisible force. The force that shapes who you are, what you do, and where you end up. It's about the tiny decisions you make every single day. The ones you don't even notice. The ones that seem meaningless in the moment but compound into something extraordinary over time. We live in a world obsessed with big transformations. Lose 50 pounds. Make $1 million. Become a completely different person by next month. But here's the truth nobody wants to hear. Transformation doesn't happen in dramatic moments. It happens in the boring, repetitive, unsexy decisions you make when nobody's watching. It happens in the 1% improvements. The invisible upgrades. The atomic shifts. And by the end of this journey together, you're going to understand something powerful. You don't need to be a different person to change your life. You just need to be 1% better. Again. And again. And again. Let's begin. Section 1. The Invisible Architecture. Most people think their life is shaped by big decisions. The college you chose. The person you married. The job you took. But that's not how life actually works. Your life is shaped by the hundreds of micro decisions you make every single day without thinking. Whether you check your phone first thing in the morning. Whether you eat breakfast standing up or sitting down. Whether you take the stairs or the elevator. These feel meaningless. They feel like nothing. But here's what's really happening. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. You scroll through social media for an hour? That's a vote for distraction. You read 5 pages of a book? That's a vote for growth. You skip the gym? That's a vote for stagnation. You go anyway? That's a vote for strength. One vote doesn't decide an election. But 1,000 votes? 10,000 votes? That's how you win. Think about it like this. Imagine 2 pilots. They're both flying from Los Angeles to New York. One of them adjusts his trajectory by just 3 degrees. Just 3. You wouldn't even notice it at takeoff. The plane looks like it's heading in the same direction. But by the time they land, one plane is in New York. The other is in Washington, D.C. 3 degrees. That's all it took. Your daily behaviors are those 3 degrees. They seem small. But they determine your destination. The person who drinks 1 soda every day doesn't feel unhealthy. Not today. Not tomorrow. But in 5 years? 10 years? The compound effect is undeniable. The person who writes 1 page every day doesn't feel like an author. Not on day 1. Not on day 10. But in a year? They've written a book. Your current results are the compound interest of your past behaviors. Your health is the compound interest of your meals. Your knowledge is the compound interest of your reading habits. Your relationships are the compound interest of your conversations. And here's the part that changes everything. If you want different results, you don't need to change your goals. You need to change your systems. You need to change the invisible architecture that produces those results. Let's move deeper. Section 2. The Plateau of Latent Potential. There's a valley everyone has to walk through. It's dark. It's lonely. And it's where most people quit. Picture this: you start a new habit. You're excited. You're motivated. You wake up early. You go to the gym. You eat clean. You study. You work on your side project. Day 1, you feel amazing. Day 7, you still feel good. Day 30, you step on the scale. You check your bank account. You look at your progress. And you see almost nothing. You've been working so hard. You've been so disciplined. And the results? They're barely visible. This is the valley. This is where dreams go to die. But here's what you need to understand. Results are not linear. They don't grow in a straight line. They grow like an ice cube melting in reverse. Imagine you're in a room. It's freezing cold. 25 degrees. You're sitting there, waiting for ice to melt. Nothing happens. You raise the temperature 1 degree. 26 degrees. Still nothing. Another degree. 27. Still frozen. You keep going. 28. 29. 30. 31. Still. Nothing. Then, at 32 degrees, the ice starts to melt. Did that 1 degree make all the difference? No. Every degree mattered. Every single one. But the results were delayed. Latent. Invisible. Until suddenly they weren't. This is how breakthrough moments happen. Not because you suddenly got better, but because you finally crossed the threshold where your efforts became visible. Most people quit at 28 degrees. They're so close. So incredibly close. But they can't see it. They can't feel it. So they stop. The winners? They keep going. They trust the process. They understand that change is happening beneath the surface. Even when they can't see it. Your job is not to see results immediately. Your job is to stay in the valley long enough for the compound effect to work its magic. Here's the truth most people miss. Section 3, the identity shift. There are 3 layers to change. Most people focus on the wrong one. The first layer is outcomes. This is about what you get. Lose 20 pounds. Write a book. Make 6 figures. The second layer is processes. This is about what you do. Go to the gym 4 times a week. Write every morning. Build a side business. The third layer is identity. This is about what you believe. Who you are. Here's the problem. Most people try to change their outcomes without changing their identity. And that's why they fail. Let me show you what I mean. 2 people are offered a cigarette at a party. The first person says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." The second person says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." Same outcome. Different identity. The first person still sees themselves as a smoker. They're just resisting. They're white-knuckling it. They're fighting themselves. The second person? They've already changed. In their mind, they're not a smoker. The cigarette isn't even tempting. It's not for them. It's for someone else. That's the power of identity. When you change your identity, your behavior follows automatically. You don't have to force it. You don't have to rely on motivation. You just act like the person you already believe you are. Think about a runner. A real runner. Not someone who's trying to run. Someone who is a runner. They don't debate whether to go for a run. They just run. Because that's what runners do. Now think about someone who's trying to become a runner. Every morning is a battle. Should I go? I don't feel like it. Maybe tomorrow. See the difference? One is fighting their identity. The other is living it. Here's how you shift your identity. You start with tiny actions. Every time you do that action, you cast a vote for the person you want to become. 1 vote doesn't change your identity. But 100 votes? 1,000 votes? That's when you start to believe it. You write 1 page. You're becoming a writer. You go to the gym once. You're becoming an athlete. You read 5 pages. You're becoming a learner. Each action is proof. Evidence. A signal to your brain. This is who I am. And slowly, without even realizing it, your identity shifts. You stop trying to be someone. You start being someone. This brings us to a powerful shift. Section 4. The 4 laws of behavior. Every behavior follows a pattern. It's invisible, automatic. But once you see it, you can unsee it. It happens in 4 steps. Step 1: the cue. Something in your environment triggers your brain. You see your phone. You smell coffee. You hear a notification. Your brain notices. Step 2: the craving. You want something. Not the behavior itself, but the feeling the behavior gives you. You don't want to check your phone. You want to feel connected. You don't want coffee. You want to feel awake. Step 3: the response. You take action. You check the phone. You pour the coffee. You do the behavior. Step 4: the reward. You get the feeling you craved. You feel connected. You feel awake. Your brain remembers. This worked. Do it again. This loop runs your life. Every habit you have, good or bad, follows this pattern. And here's the beautiful part. If you understand the pattern, you can redesign it. You can build good habits by making them obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. You can break bad habits by making them invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. Let me give you an example. You want to drink more water, but you forget. You don't crave it. It feels like a chore. So you redesign the loop. Make it obvious. Put a water bottle on your desk, right in front of you. You can't miss it. Make it attractive. Use a bottle you love. Make it beautiful. Make it something you want to use. Make it easy. Fill it up in the morning. Don't make yourself walk to the kitchen every time. Make it satisfying. Track it. Put a checkmark on your calendar. Feel the win. Now the loop works for you, not against you. The same system applies to every habit you want to build or break. You're not fighting yourself anymore. You're designing an environment where the right behavior is the easiest behavior. Let's move deeper into how this works. Section 5: the power of environment. Here's a question nobody wants to answer honestly. Are you the product of your choices? Or are you the product of your environment? Most people say choices. They want to believe they're in control, that willpower and discipline are enough. But science says something different. You are not a thinking machine that feels. You are a feeling machine that thinks. And your environment shapes your feelings more than you realize. Let me show you. There was a study done on soldiers returning from Vietnam. A huge percentage of them were addicted to heroin while overseas. People were terrified. They thought America would face a massive addiction crisis when the soldiers came home. But something strange happened. When the soldiers returned, over 90% of them quit. Just like that. No rehab. No intervention. They just stopped. Why? Because their environment changed. The cues disappeared. The triggers were gone. Back home, heroin wasn't easy to find. It wasn't normalized. It wasn't everywhere. The environment did the work. Now think about your own life. If your phone is on your nightstand, you'll check it first thing in the morning. Not because you lack discipline, but because it's there. If there's junk food in your pantry, you'll eat it. Not because you're weak, but because it's visible. If your running shoes are buried in the closet, you won't go for a run. Not because you don't care, but because it's too much friction. Your environment is the invisible hand guiding every decision you make. So stop trying to be a better person in a bad environment. Instead, design an environment where the right behavior is automatic. Put your vitamins next to your coffee maker. You'll take them. Put your journal on your pillow. You'll write before bed. Delete social media from your phone. You'll stop scrolling. Make the good behavior obvious. Make the bad behavior invisible. You're not fighting yourself anymore. You're setting yourself up to win. Here's the truth most people miss. Section 6: the 2-minute rule. Most people think big. They set big goals. They plan big changes. They dream big dreams. And then they do nothing. Because big is overwhelming. Big is scary. Big requires motivation. And motivation is unreliable. Here's a better way. Make it so small, it feels stupid not to do it. Read one page. Do one push-up. Write one sentence. Meditate for 1 minute. This is the 2-minute rule. Scale your habit down until it takes 2 minutes or less. You're not trying to finish. You're trying to start. Because starting is the hardest part. Once you start, momentum takes over. You read 1 page and suddenly you've read 5. You do 1 push-up and suddenly you've done 10. But even if you don't do more, you still win. Because you showed up. You cast a vote for your identity. You prove to yourself, I'm the kind of person who does this. Think about it like this. You don't build a house by staring at the blueprint. You build it by laying 1 brick. Then another. Then another. The 2-minute rule is your first brick. Let me tell you about a writer who couldn't write. He'd sit at his desk every day, staring at a blank page, feeling like a fraud. So he made a rule. He only had to write 1 bad sentence. That's it. 1 sentence. It could be terrible. It didn't matter. Every day, he wrote 1 sentence. And most days, that 1 sentence turned into a paragraph. Then a page. Then a chapter. But even on the days it didn't, he still won. Because he showed up. 2 years later, he finished his book. Not because he was disciplined. Not because he was motivated. But because he made it so easy, he couldn't say no. That's the secret. You're not trying to be perfect. You're trying to be consistent. And consistency beats intensity every single time. This brings us to a powerful shift. Section 7, the Goldilocks Zone. There's a sweet spot where growth happens. Not too easy. Not too hard. Just right. Psychologists call it the Goldilocks Zone. It's the space where you're challenged just enough to stay engaged, but not so much that you give up. Think about a video game. If it's too easy, you're bored. If it's too hard, you're frustrated. But when it's just right? When you're barely winning? That's when you can't put it down. That's flow. That's where mastery lives. The problem is, most people don't design their habits for the Goldilocks zone. They either make things too easy and lose interest, or they make things too hard and burn out. Here's how to stay in the zone. You need to follow the 4% rule. Your habit should be about 4% harder than your current ability. Just slightly outside your comfort zone. Enough to stretch you, but not break you. If you're running a mile, aim for 1.04 miles. If you're reading 10 pages, aim for 11. If you're saving $10, aim for $10.40. Tiny stretch. Big impact. Because growth doesn't happen when you're comfortable. And it doesn't happen when you're overwhelmed. It happens when you're right on the edge. Let me tell you about a musician. She'd been playing guitar for years. She was good. But she'd hit a plateau. Nothing was improving. Then she changed one thing. Instead of practicing songs she already knew, she learned one new technique every week. Just one. Not a whole song. Not a whole album. Just one small thing she couldn't do before. 6 months later, she was unrecognizable. Not because she practiced more, but because she practiced smarter. She stayed in the Goldilocks zone. Your job is to find that edge. To push yourself just enough. And then, when that becomes easy, push a little more. Never settle. Never plateau. Always stretch. Let's move deeper. Section 8. The danger of hidden costs. Every habit has a price. Most people don't see it. They only see the reward. You eat fast food. It's cheap, fast, convenient. But the price? Your health. Your energy. Your future self. You scroll social media. It's entertaining, easy, addictive. But the price? Your time. Your focus. Your creativity. You hit snooze. It's comfortable, tempting, effortless. But the price? Your morning. Your momentum. Your self-respect. The problem is, the price is hidden. It's delayed. You don't pay it today. You pay it months or years from now when the compound effect catches up. And by then, it feels too late. Here's what you need to understand. Every action has immediate outcomes and delayed outcomes. Good habits have immediate costs and delayed rewards. Bad habits have immediate rewards and delayed costs. That's why bad habits feel so good. That's why good habits feel so hard. You're not wired to think long term. Your brain is designed for survival, for immediate gratification, for avoiding pain and seeking pleasure right now. But the life you want? That's built on delayed gratification, on paying the price up front, on choosing the hard thing now for the better thing later. So here's how you win. You make the hidden costs visible. You bring the future into the present. You don't just think about the donut. You think about how you'll feel an hour later. Sluggish. Guilty. Regretful. You don't just think about skipping the gym. You think about who you'll become if you skip it 100 times. Weak. Unhealthy. Disappointed in yourself. You don't just think about the scroll. You think about the hours you'll lose. The book you won't write. The dream you won't chase. Make the invisible visible. Make the future real. Because the life you want is on the other side of short-term discomfort. Here's the truth most people miss. Section 9. The power of tracking. What gets measured gets managed. You've heard that before. But do you really understand it? Let me show you. There's something magical that happens when you track a behavior. It becomes real. It becomes visible. It becomes undeniable. You think you're working hard. But when you track your hours, you realize you're only working 4 hours a day. You think you're eating healthy. But when you track your meals, you realize you're snacking constantly. You think you're saving money. But when you track your spending, you realize it's disappearing on things you don't even remember buying. Tracking doesn't lie. And that's exactly why it works. But there's something deeper happening here. When you track a habit, you're not just collecting data. You're creating a visual representation of your identity. Every checkmark on your calendar is proof. Evidence. A vote for the person you're becoming. You see that chain of checkmarks growing longer and longer, and something shifts inside you. You don't want to break the chain. You don't want to let yourself down. The act of tracking becomes its own reward. Let me tell you about a guy who couldn't stay consistent with anything. He'd start strong, then fade. Start again, then quit. Over and over. Then he bought a calendar. A big one. And he made one rule. Every day he worked out, he put a red X on that day. That's it. Nothing fancy. Just a red X. The first week, he had 7 X's. It felt good. The second week, 14. He didn't want to break the streak. By the end of the month, he had 30 X's staring back at him. He wasn't just working out anymore. He was building proof. He was becoming someone who doesn't quit. 2 years later, he hasn't missed a week. Not because he's motivated, but because he's got 2 years of proof hanging on his wall. That's the power of tracking. It makes the invisible visible. It turns effort into evidence. It transforms behavior into identity. Here's how to use it. Pick one habit. Just one. Track it every single day. Don't overcomplicate it. Just mark it. Check it. Record it. And watch what happens when you see that chain grow. This brings us to a powerful shift. Section 10. The Art of Recovery. Here's something nobody tells you. You will fail. You'll miss a workout. You'll skip your writing session. You'll eat the junk food. You'll break your streak. And when that happens, most people spiral. They think, I've ruined everything. I might as well quit. But that's not how successful people think. Successful people understand the most important rule of habit building: never miss twice. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit. Let me explain. You missed the gym on Monday. That's life. You're human. Things happen. But if you miss again on Tuesday, you're no longer someone who goes to the gym. You're someone who used to go to the gym. The first miss is forgivable. The second miss is dangerous. So here's the rule: when you break your streak, get back on track immediately. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Immediately. do something small. Even if it's just 2 minutes. Even if it's just a shadow of what you normally do. Do something. Because you're not trying to be perfect. You're trying to prove to yourself that you're still that person. That you haven't quit. That you're just recovering. Think about it like this. Elite athletes get injured. But they don't stop being athletes. They recover. They rest. They heal. And then they come back stronger. You need to treat your habits the same way. If you break your streak, don't punish yourself. Don't spiral into guilt. Just recover. Just get back on track. Just prove to yourself that this was a blip, not a breakdown. Let me tell you about a woman who lost 80 pounds. People asked her, "How did you do it? What's your secret?" She said, "I never let a bad meal turn into a bad week." That was it. That was the whole secret. She didn't eat perfectly. She messed up all the time. But every time she did, she recovered immediately. She didn't wait for Monday. She didn't wait for motivation. She just got back on track. And over time, those recoveries added up to a transformation. Your job is not to be perfect. Your job is to recover quickly. Because the difference between who you are and who you want to be is just how fast you bounce back. Let's move deeper. Section 11, The Power of Environment Design, Part 2. You've already learned that environment shapes behavior. But there's a deeper layer most people miss. Your environment doesn't just make behaviors easier or harder. It changes what feels normal. Let me show you what I mean. If you grow up in a house where everyone reads, reading feels normal. If you grow up in a house where everyone watches TV, TV feels normal. You don't question it. You don't resist it. It's just what people do. That's the power of normalization. Your environment tells you who you are. It tells you what's acceptable. It tells you what's expected. And you conform to it automatically. So if you want to change, you need to change your environment. Not just the physical space, but the social space. You need to surround yourself with people who have the habits you want. If you want to be a writer, hang out with writers. If you want to be healthy, hang out with healthy people. If you want to be ambitious, hang out with ambitious people. Not because they'll teach you, but because being around them makes your desired behavior feel normal. When everyone around you is doing the thing you want to do, you stop questioning it. You stop resisting it. You just do it. Because that's what people like you do. Let me tell you about a guy who wanted to quit drinking. He tried everything. Willpower. Motivation. Apps. Nothing worked. Then he joined a running club. Not to quit drinking. Just to run. But the people in the club didn't drink. They woke up early. They trained hard. They were focused. And slowly, without even trying, he became like them. Because that's what runners do. 6 months later, he hadn't touched alcohol. Not because he was fighting the urge, but because he'd become someone else. That's the power of your social environment. You become the average of the people you spend time with. So choose your environment carefully. Choose your friends carefully. Choose your influences carefully. Because your environment is not neutral. It's either lifting you up or pulling you down. Here's the truth most people miss. Section 12, The Myth of Motivation. Let me destroy a myth right now. You do not need motivation to build good habits. In fact, relying on motivation is the worst strategy possible. Because motivation is fickle. It's emotional. It's unreliable. Some days you have it. Most days you don't. Motivation is what gets you started. Systems are what keep you going. Think about it. You don't brush your teeth because you're motivated. You brush your teeth because it's automatic. It's part of your routine. It's just what you do. That's the goal. To make your habits so automatic, you don't need to think about them. Here's how you do it. You stack them. You attach your new habit to an existing habit. After I pour my coffee, I'll write 1 sentence. After I brush my teeth, I'll do 10 push-ups. After I get home from work, I'll put on my running shoes. This is called habit stacking. And it works because your brain already knows the first habit. It's automatic. So the second habit gets pulled along with it. You're not relying on motivation anymore. You're relying on momentum. Let me tell you about a teacher who wanted to start meditating. But every day, she'd forget. She'd get busy. She'd tell herself she'd do it later. Then she made one change. After I sit down at my desk in the morning, I'll close my eyes for 60 seconds. That's it. She didn't try to meditate for 20 minutes. She didn't wait for the perfect time. She just stacked it onto something she already did. 1 year later, she's meditating every single day. Not because she's motivated, but because it's automatic. Your job is to stop chasing motivation and start building systems. Make your habits so easy, so automatic, so integrated into your life, that you don't need to think about them. Because the people who succeed aren't the ones who feel like doing it. They're the ones who do it anyway. This brings us to a powerful shift. Section 13. The Plateau of Mastery. Here's something nobody warns you about. Even when your habits are working, even when you're consistent, even when you're making progress, you'll hit another plateau. It's called the Plateau of Mastery. In the beginning, progress is obvious. You're learning fast. You're improving quickly. Every week feels like a breakthrough. But eventually you get good. And when you get good, progress slows down. You go from beginner gains to expert refinement. And expert refinement is invisible. You're working just as hard. Maybe harder. But the results? They're tiny. They're subtle. They're easy to miss. This is where most people stop. They think, I've plateaued. I'm not getting better. Why keep going? But here's what they don't understand. The plateau is where mastery happens. The plateau is where you separate yourself from everyone else. The plateau is where you become elite. Because most people quit at the plateau. Most people need to see results to stay motivated. Most people can't do the work when it feels invisible. But you're not most people. You understand that the plateau is not a stopping point. It's a refining point. You're not stuck. You're building depth. You're building expertise. You're building resilience. Let me tell you about a musician. He'd been playing for 10 years. He was great. People loved him. But inside, he felt stuck. He wasn't improving anymore. Then his teacher told him something that changed everything. You're not stuck. You're refining. You're 1% better than you were last year. You just can't see it yet. So he kept going. He kept practicing. He kept showing up. And one day, 5 years later, he played a solo that brought people to tears. Not because he learned something new, but because he'd refined everything he already knew to a level most people never reach. That's the plateau of mastery. You don't quit when progress slows down. You lean in. You trust the process. You keep going. Because the people who win aren't the ones who start strong. They're the ones who finish. Let's move deeper. Section 14. The Cost of Good Habits. Here's a truth you need to accept. Good habits are not free. They cost you something. They cost you comfort. They cost you convenience. They cost you the life you're currently living. And if you're not willing to pay that cost, you won't change. Let me be blunt. You can't build a great body without sacrificing junk food and lazy mornings. You can't build a successful business without sacrificing Netflix and weekends. You can't build deep relationships without sacrificing surface-level friendships and alone time. Everything has a price. And the question is not whether you want the outcome. The question is whether you're willing to pay the price. Most people aren't. They want the result without the sacrifice. They want the transformation without the work. They want the destination without the journey. But life doesn't work that way. The people who win are not the people who want it more. They're the people who are willing to pay more. They're willing to wake up early when it's dark and cold. They're willing to do the reps when nobody's watching. They're willing to sacrifice short-term pleasure for long-term gain. That's the cost. Let me tell you about an entrepreneur. He had a dream. He wanted to build a company. He wanted freedom. He wanted impact. But he also loved sleeping in. He loved going out with friends. He loved relaxing on weekends. For 2 years, he tried to have both. He tried to build a business while keeping his old lifestyle. And for 2 years, nothing happened. Then he made a choice. He decided the dream was worth more than the comfort. He woke up at 5. He worked weekends. He said no to parties. He paid the price. 3 years later, he sold his company for 8 figures. Not because he was smarter. Not because he was luckier. But because he was willing to pay the price nobody else would pay. Here's the question you need to ask yourself. What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to give up? What price are you willing to pay? Because until you answer that question honestly, you're not ready to change. This brings us to a powerful shift. Section 15, the identity-based system. Let me tie everything together. You now understand that habits compound. That environment shapes behavior. That tracking creates accountability. That recovery is essential. That motivation is overrated. But none of it works unless you change one thing: your identity. Because at the end of the day, your habits are not about what you do. They're about who you are. If you see yourself as someone who struggles with discipline, you'll struggle. If you see yourself as someone who's not a morning person, you'll hit snooze. If you see yourself as someone who's not athletic, you'll skip the gym. Your identity is the lens through which you see every decision. And that lens determines your behavior. So the goal is not to build habits. The goal is to become the type of person who naturally does those things. You don't want to read every day. You want to become a reader. You don't want to exercise every day. You want to become an athlete. You don't want to be productive. You want to become the type of person who gets things done. See the difference? When your identity changes, your behavior follows automatically. So here's how you do it. You start with small wins. Every time you do the behavior, you reinforce the identity. Every workout is proof you're an athlete. Every page is proof you're a reader. Every saved dollar is proof you're financially responsible. And slowly, vote by vote, action by action, your identity shifts. You stop trying to be someone. You start being someone. Let me tell you about a man who transformed his entire life. He was broke, out of shape, depressed. He had no direction. But he made one decision. He decided to become the type of person who keeps promises to himself. So he made one tiny promise. Every morning I'll make my bed. He did it. Every day. For 30 days. Then he made another promise. Every morning, I'll make my bed and do 10 push-ups. He kept that promise too. Then another. And another. And another. 5 years later, he's a different person. Not because he changed his circumstances, but because he changed his identity. He's no longer someone who tries. He's someone who does. That's the power of identity-based habits. You're not building a routine. You're building a self. Let's move deeper into the final piece. Section 16, the long game. Most people are playing the wrong game. They're playing the short game. The quick fix. The instant result. They want to lose weight in 30 days. Build a business in 6 months. Transform their life in a year. But the people who actually win, they're playing a different game entirely. They're playing the long game. The infinite game. The game where the goal is not to finish, but to keep playing. Because here's the truth. There is no finish line. There is no moment where you arrive and get to stop. Life is not a destination. It's a direction. You don't build habits to achieve a goal. You build habits to become the type of person who lives that way forever. Let me explain. If you lose 20 pounds, but you haven't changed your identity, you'll gain it back. Because you're still the same person. You just force yourself to act differently for a while. But if you become the type of person who values health, who enjoys movement, who chooses nourishing food, you'll never need to lose weight again. Because you're living differently. That's the long game. You're not trying to win once. You're trying to keep winning. You're not trying to reach a destination. You're trying to build a lifestyle. And the beautiful part? When you play the long game, the short game takes care of itself. You don't worry about losing 20 pounds. You just live like a healthy person. And the weight falls off. You don't worry about making $1 million. You just live like someone who creates value. And the money follows. You don't worry about being successful. You just live like someone who shows up every day. And success becomes inevitable. That's the shift. Stop chasing outcomes. Start building systems. Stop thinking in sprints. Start thinking in decades. Because the people who win are not the fastest. They're the ones who never stop running. Let me tell you about a writer. He wasn't talented. He wasn't connected. He wasn't lucky. But he had one advantage. He was willing to play the long game. He wrote every single day. Not for fame. Not for money. Not for applause. Just because that's what writers do. 10 years later, he'd written a dozen books. Some sold well. Most didn't. But he didn't care. He wasn't playing for outcomes. He was playing to play. 20 years later, he's a household name. Not because he got lucky. But because he never stopped. That's the long game. You don't need to be the best. You just need to keep going. This brings us to the final truth. Section 17. The compound effect of identity. Here's the ultimate realization. You are the compound interest of your daily actions. Every decision you make is an investment. Either in the person you want to become, or in the person you're trying to leave behind. Every workout is an investment in your future health. Every book is an investment in your future wisdom. Every conversation is an investment in your future relationships. Every dollar saved is an investment in your future freedom. And here's the magic. You don't need to see the return today. You just need to trust that it's compounding. Because in 10 years, the person you've become will be the sum of the tiny decisions you made every single day. And those tiny decisions? They're either building you up or breaking you down. There's no neutral. There's no standing still. You're either moving forward or sliding backward. So the question is simple. Who do you want to be in 10 years? And what are you doing today to become that person? Not tomorrow. Not next week. Not when you feel motivated. Today. Right now. Because the person you're becoming is not determined by your big decisions. It's determined by the small ones. The invisible ones. The atomic ones. The decision to wake up early. The decision to skip the donut. The decision to write one sentence. The decision to keep your promise to yourself. Those are the decisions that matter. Those are the decisions that compound. And over time, those decisions become your identity. And your identity becomes your destiny. Let me leave you with one final story. There was a man who wanted to change his life. He tried everything. Goals. Plans. Motivation. Nothing stuck. Then he realized something. He didn't need a better plan. He needed a better identity. So he stopped trying to achieve things. He started trying to become someone. Every day, he asked himself one question. What would the person I want to be do right now? And then he did that thing. One decision at a time. One day at a time. One identity vote at a time. 5 years later, he looked back and couldn't recognize the person he used to be. He wasn't lucky. He wasn't special. He just compounded. And so can you. Ending, the person you're becoming. So here we are. You've walked through the valley. You've learned the systems. You've seen the truth. And now, the only question that matters is this. Who are you becoming? Not who you want to be. Not who you think you should be. But who are you becoming right now, today, based on the choices you're making? Because the person you're becoming is already here. They're in the decisions you made this morning. The habits you kept. The promises you honored. They're in the tiny votes you cast for yourself when nobody was watching. And if you don't like who you're becoming, you can change it. Right now. Today. Not with a big decision. Not with a dramatic transformation. But with one small choice. One atomic habit. One vote for the person you want to be, and then another, and another, and another. Until one day, you look in the mirror and realize that person you were trying to become? They'd been here all along. You just had to prove it to yourself. Vote by vote. Day by day. 1% at a time. Welcome to the rest of your life. Now go become who you already are.